Mary had always dreamed of a quiet life away from the hustle and bustle. When she was offered a job at a small library in the village of Westwood, she accepted without hesitation. Together with the job, she got an old house on the edge of the forest, cozy, but a little dilapidated, with walls darkened by time and narrow windows. She didn't mind the creaking floors or the smell of damp. It was her chance to start over. The first few days passed quietly. Mary sorted out books in the library, walked around the village, got used to the new place. But soon, she noticed an oddity in the house. In the living room was a large antique mirror with a carved frame covered with shabby gold. It looked like it hadn't been touched in decades, but the glass was perfectly clean. Every time she walked past it, Mary felt a slight chill, as if the mirror were watching her. One night, she was awakened by a sound, a quiet thud, as if someone was tapping on the glass. She thought it was a branch hitting the window, but when she looked out, she saw only the still trees. The knocking was repeated, and Mary realized it was coming from the living room. With flashlight in hand, she went downstairs. The mirror reflected the dark room, but the knocking came from there, rhythmic, insistent, as if someone were trying to get out. Mary stepped closer. She saw herself in the reflection, pale, with disheveled hair. But something was wrong. Her reflection was smiling. She stood there with her face frozen with horror. The knocking stopped, and the reflection slowly raised its hand, pointing somewhere to the side. Mary turned around, but there was nothing behind her. When she looked in the mirror again, the reflection was already normal. The next day, she told the story in the library. Her co-worker, an older woman named Sarah, frowned. "That house. It's not simple," she said. An old woman lived there about 50 years ago. It was said she could see what was hidden. The mirror was hers. After she died, the house was empty until you came. Sarah advised getting rid of the mirror, but Mary didn't want to seem superstitious. She decided it was just a play of the imagination. But the weirdness didn't stop. Every night, the knocking returned, louder and louder. Sometimes there was a whisper, a low, inaudible whisper, as if it were coming through a thick wall. Mary began to notice that her reflection in the mirror was behaving more and more strangely. It would linger for a second when she stepped away, or blink when she looked directly into her eyes. One day, she saw her reflection turn her head to the side, even though she was standing still. Things got worse when she found an old box in the basement. Inside lay yellowed letters written by a trembling hand. They were addressed to the shadow. In one of them, the old woman, the former landlady, wrote, "You promised me peace, but I still hear their voices. Why do you look at me from the mirror? I did as you asked." Another letter was even scarier. "They want to come out. I can't stop them. I'm sorry." Mary felt a chill run down her back. She decided she would carry the mirror out of the house in the morning, but the night changed her plans. That night, the knocking became deafening. Mary woke up in a cold sweat and heard the whisper, now clear, "Let us go." She went down to the living room, shivering with fear. The mirror no longer reflected the room. It was a dark corridor going off into the distance. There were shadows moving in the depths, tall, hunched, with long arms. They approached slowly, their footsteps echoing in the house. The whispers grew louder. "Let us go, or stay with us." Mary screamed and grabbed the first thing at hand, a heavy candlestick. She struck the mirror, and the glass shattered. The noise stopped, and the shadows disappeared, but the silence was worse. She felt that something had changed. In the morning, she collected the pieces and threw them in the woods, away from the house. A week later, Mary quit her job and left Forest Key. She didn't tell anyone what had happened that last night, but before she left, she noticed a small pocket mirror in her car that hadn't been there before. A shadow flickered in it, just for a moment, but it was enough for her to throw it into the river. They say the house still stands empty, and those who pass by sometimes notice that the windows shine like mirrors, even in the dark. And if you stare into them long enough, you can hear whispers.